Hey, it's Steve. Real quick before we begin, the single biggest thing I've learned about succeeding as an ADHD entrepreneur is that everything boils down to mastering your weeks. So if ADHD is making business harder than it needs to be, I've got something that can help. Grab my free weekly ADHD dashboard. It's a free, simple, but powerful tool to help you stay focused, organized, and in control of your week. The link is in the description below. Hey, Steve August here with ADHD Entrepreneur Accelerator. Great to have you back. Thanks for being with me. This is another solo episode where I am mulling today or thinking about the idea of productivity shame. And this is a phrase that came up on a LinkedIn thread as somebody reacted to one of my posts on LinkedIn, where you can find me. And the thing that this person said was that after learning, getting a late diagnosis and then later in life, that this person was able to let go of the productivity shame, the shame of not somehow being able to use these famous systems, whether it's GTD or the 7 habits or whatever it happens to be. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that phenomenon and to sort of like acknowledge that there is this level of shame that I see in the folks who come through my programs, come through Your Weekly OS. And one of the big things that I see with those folks is this release of that shame. Because if you have ADHD, whether you're officially diagnosed or you're self-diagnosed, like you're familiar with this phenomenon, right? This phenomenon of you want to get things done. You have things you want to make happen in life and in business, and you try to get them done. And for whatever reason, you feel like you just aren't performing to the level that you want to perform at. And this can happen in different frames. Like I was talking with an entrepreneur who is a mom and also in the age where going through perimenopause. And that can be really challenging for an ADHD brain to manage the executive function of that. And so there's a lot of shame that builds up of not doing what you know you're capable of doing. It's not that you don't know what to do, as Dr. Russell Barkley says. It's not that you don't know what to do. It's like it's so hard to do what you know. And you show up to wherever you work, whether it's a computer or whatever, and you sit down and you're like, you got a plan, and sometimes just even getting the plan together is a challenge because ADHD brains with a lower level of executive function sometimes have a really hard time just figuring out the plan, let alone doing the plan. And so show up to do the plan, whatever you have for the week. And then you start off and maybe you get one thing done. And then all of a sudden you're down rabbit holes and cycling through lots of different shiny objects and chasing squirrels and you're down the research rabbit holes. And you look up at the end of the day and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't get anything done. I got like 1/8 of the thing or 1/16 of the stuff I have tended to get done that I was so sure I was going to get done today. And now not only do I have that stuff to do, I've got whatever was coming up tomorrow. And it creates this kind of shame of like, because the people around you might be like, yeah, I just knocked this stuff out. I'm ready to go hang out, go relax. And you're like, I can't relax. I have all this stuff on my mind that I didn't get done. And I know tomorrow I'm going to try to get it done, but I know tomorrow is probably going to look a lot like today, where I set out to do all these things that I meant to do and I didn't do them. My brain was just like, nope, we're not doing that. And there's a lot of shame that comes with that, especially when you know that your people relying on you, you know that you can deliver, that you have in the past, you know that you have the capacity to do it, you have the intelligence to do it, you have the creativity to do it. And yet, for whatever reason, your brain just can't get into gear. And the shame of that is really challenging. And where the big breakthrough tends to come from in addressing the shame is the acceptance of understanding your ADHD brain and saying, okay, here's the brain that I have. It is super good at these things, like creating and doing and ideating and thinking of new things. And it is really challenged when it comes to things that take executive function. Prioritizing, organizing, task initiation, following through, sustaining, working memory, just remembering stuff. But once we know that that's your brain, we can work with that, right? We can say, okay, how do we get the most out of our brain? Where is our executive function at any given part of the day? What's our best place where we are sharp, where we do have the drive and can at least get some stuff done? Let's put the most important stuff there. Let's understand that some days are going to be really good and some days are going to be really challenging. And especially if we've had 3 or 4 really good days, you can pretty much expect that there's going to be a down day from executive function, that you're going to struggle more to get things done because your brain gets tired. It has a certain amount of a pool of executive function that you can deploy. And over the course of the week, you're going to draw it down. And the more you draw it down, sometimes the better you're doing, the more you draw it down, and it's great. And then all of a sudden you hit the wall and you're like, what the heck happened? I was cruising and now I'm not. Once you understand that that's just part of how your brain works, and it's just like, oh, it's like I have glasses because my eyes work a certain way. It's not a big deal, right? I wear glasses. I have to make an adjustment and give myself some help, and that's fine, right? And so we can do that with our brain too. And I think that's where the stigma comes from, is like nobody thinks twice about, hey, if you've got, or you're nearsighted or farsighted, well, you can get glasses or LASIK or contacts, and nobody thinks twice about that. But for brain stuff, there's sort of a stigma. It's like, hey, you look fine, you're smart. Why can't you just do it, right? Why can't you go Nike on that? And it's because, well, our brain is a little different. It isn't good at doing that part of things, and it needs certain things, and we can expect it to work in certain ways. But once we come into acceptance of that, and once we understand how it works, then we can design our systems to support it, right? So I know that it's really hard to plan and work towards distant goals in the months and years to come. That's why I preach weeks are your best container for making progress. That's why I created my program called Your Weekly OS. So you have a system to work your weeks. Working with other people, understanding that having a group of people around you to sort of just be with you as a presence, like coworking or body doubling, is super, super useful for getting out of procrastination and doing stuff and feeling like you have a tribe. And it's these things that once we let go of the shame, we can just accept and step into. And it's amazing the progress that happens. And we can make a tremendous amount of progress, but we're not going to make that if we just keep butting our heads up against systems that don't really get that. The systems that I've seen where I can tell in the instructions where they'll go through the systems. First, you brain dump everything else. Okay, I can do that. Then we're going to prioritize everything. Okay. And then it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like the prioritization for an ADHD brain is super hard. It's very cognitively expensive for an ADHD brain to prioritize a huge stack of everything, a huge brain dump. So just understanding that, okay, that's going to take more time than you think. It's going to take some energy, and that's okay. And then we're not going to strictly time block it, because that's way too much executive function to use for the benefit we get out of it. We're going to loosely time block it. We're going to use a 2-hour workday. So just things like that. Once we let go of that productivity shame and just lean into this, is our brain. We're just going to find a system that works with it. And it's amazing the weight that comes off our shoulders and the amount of progress that we can make. So if you're ADHD, if you're an entrepreneur or otherwise, and productivity is kind of an issue for you and you feel that productivity shame, I just invite you to lean into understanding your brain as best as you can, do the research, listen to my podcast. We talk about, all these different phenomena of the ADHD brain and the quirks and the things that work and the tips, and just work to your brain. It feels like it shouldn't be that hard to do or say, but I totally get that it can be really hard to let go of, and that there's a little stigma around it. But once you step into that, once you work with your brain, once you think of it as just like, yeah, being nearsighted or farsighted, I just need a set of glasses, and it just happens to be I have ADHD glasses, and that's the techniques I use to help my brain do what I need it to do. So that's the thought. It's an invitation, honestly, to let go of productivity shame, embrace and accept how your brain is, the wonderful, brilliant brain that it is, with all the good stuff and all the challenging stuff. It's your brain. It's amazing. And that's the big thought. So if you dug this and it spoke to you, I would so appreciate you if you could give the podcast a 5-star rating or a review even. And if you're on YouTube, do the like and subscribe thing. and hit that notification bell, and I'll be back with more. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you soon.